Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here and taking parts of your evening to come and chat with us. I'm excited to go over sustainable transportation with you, and I think transportation is one of those areas that fits really neatly, or more, I should say, complex in a complex way, what Lisa was discussing about how we can integrate social values and issues with sustainable ones. And so we'll hopefully chat about that a little later in the discussion. Advancing my slides. Just a brief reference, but one that is really important for framing the discussion around sustainable transportation, particularly in the US. If you have been living in this country for maybe a year or so, it's not hard to know that the automobile tends to be our predominant form of commuting and traveling across the country in various different cities. It's one of the most convenient ways to get around, to not need to rely on public transportation or schedules. But, you know, this image right here, that happy face that kind of symbolizes comfort and ease, does have externalities that we don't always talk about when thinking about traveling and transportation. Recently, and especially more in more recent years, you know, we talk, city managers and transportation departments are talking about, are we at the end of, or are we outgrowing our auto-dominated societies? Our cities are starting to outgrow that history that we've kind of grown up with. And looking at some of these images kind of quickly display some of those externalities that I'm talking about, whether it's congestion or road rage or really, really expansive highways and roads and investments of public dollars that don't really leave a lot of room for alternative modes and ways to get around. Also, some stats that came out, and really not to underlie the emissions component, transportation from individuals is one of the single most exhaustive ways that we produce carbon emissions into the air. This is a graph that kind of highlights how transportation has kind of outgrown even just electric power as being one of the major contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. So we really are not doing ourselves favor by pigeonholing ourselves into kind of one mode and relying on one kind of way to get around, especially one that is really a heavy pollutant. So, you know, the idea that you're traveling with one individual in one vehicle for all of your commute trips, there's got to be some better ways to do commuting and traveling, right? So this is just a quick highlight. Why does sustainable transportation matter? As we said before, emissions are a huge, huge factor, especially as we talk about sustainability and using our resources wisely and resourcefully in a way that allows future generations to also take advantage of them. There is a deep integration into how transportation affects our air quality and our water quality, but also some other foreign affairs issues like our dependence on foreign oil. Operating all these gas-powered vehicles doesn't really cost nothing, and it doesn't, both financially, politically. And there are alternative ways where transportation can be used as a benefit and not a burden on public health and public equity and just the quality of our life. Touching a little bit more on the component about land and resources, this is a graphic that I really, really love, and I think it spells the picture out really well. If we're talking about land use and how we develop our communities and our neighborhoods, you know, it's very, very easy to see what takes up most resources. On the left, we have, in each of these pictures, we have 40 people, presumably, assuming that there's one person in each of these vehicles over here. And you can see what takes up the most road width and space. On the far left, we have 40 single occupancy vehicle drivers that take up the whole block. In the middle, a bus of 40 people full takes up about less than half of the block and half a lane. In the far right, we have 20 people standing, I believe, or I think all of these folks are bicyclists, not even just pedestrians, but all of them are bicyclists. And you can see all this ample road width that's just abundantly left over because it's not needing to accommodate or cater to parking or other motor vehicles. This is a graphic that is really intricate as well, but is another highlight for you all to understand and maybe look at how transportation is also intricately linked with other components of sustainability that we care about. This comes from a carbon neutral corridor plan that the state of Maryland had piloted early in 2011. And so the plan looked at how transportation, brought in the idea of transportation as just being simply about emissions, but how it really, really integrates with our land development to serve conservation goals. So the conversation talks about developing an entire corridor across multiple communities to work and maximize benefits around sustainability that are not just related to reducing single occupancy vehicles, but also reconfiguring our road width to protect our natural resources as well, directly in the area. So I know this is a very, very busy picture and we can have some more conversations a little bit about it, but I just wanted to draw the image of how transportation can be as small or as big as we want it to be when we're talking about sustainability. So how does that bring us to UMD and where we are today? UMD's climate action plan is broken out, and you've probably heard about it already, is broken out into several different areas of impact. And the area that my department and has really focuses on, of course, is around commuting behavior in individuals. So this gray-blue bar right here reflects commuting behavior for faculty, staff, and students on campus. One of the primary areas in the climate action plan is to provide alternatives. So we are not completely auto dependent and single occupancy vehicle dependent. So to provide alternative modes of transportation that promote sustainability, provide alternative options. When this plan was initiated and into 2018, we did do a rebrand and launched our Smart Commute program. Purpose and the goals around Smart Commute is how do we get behavior change to take form? What are the things that we need to do? You can't just provide options for people. That's a very, very important part. But you also have to make these options make sense for people. We need to make it make sense for their pockets. We need to make sure it makes sense for their commute times and make it convenient and easy in ways that don't make us default back to old habits around single occupancy vehicle use. So our campaign and our program really encourages people to rethink their ride, which is our tagline. And this it also borrows very heavily and is an embedment of a field that is developing and emerging that looks at behavioral science, data, and transportation, what we call transportation demand management, to activate a collective shift. We're looking at shifting, of course, as I mentioned already, single occupancy vehicle usage over into a variety of different strategies and modes. Providing options is one critical and key way that we make these shifts, but it takes a lot more than just providing the options, as I said, to translating it into a collective thing that society really adopts and understands as a normalized means of commuting and traveling. So that's one big part of our program. And then another way that we really, really emphasize sustainable transportation is by, once again, making our environment more bicycle friendly. That's a huge component. More pedestrian friendly and more bicycle friendly. The way we dedicate our resources and staff time to alternative modes of transportation and create a culture that welcomes bicycling, welcomes pedestrian activity is really, really important. Our campus is actually designated as a gold-friendly, bicycle-friendly campus by the League of American Bicyclists for a variety of different areas in education, encouragement activities, from the group bike rides we do, and the programming efforts from some of our low speed campuses that does cater to a more bicycle friendly environment, having an established registration system and enforcement system for bicycle parking, and adding bicycle parking somewhere for people to actually park their bicycles at the end of their trips when they arrive here. Secured facilities, and I can kind of ramble on about that, but really kind of thinking through the small individual steps and needs of bicycle commuters to make that a more dominant and adoptable form of commuting is really something that we also work really hard on. And in recent years, as we talk about bicycle friendly alternatives, bike share and scooter share are things that have emerged in the transportation landscape. And we were really eager to provide these options to make bicycles and these different vehicles more widely available to individuals, whether you had a bike or not. So bike share has always been a really, really popular program here at Maryland. And last year we were able to introduce a fleet of electric vehicles, electric micromobility, which are e-bikes and e-scooters, with the company VioRide. And that was also really, really, really popular very, very quickly. So working to adapt to new innovations that are available around campus and make them available to our wider College Park community. In doing so, we are able to communicate the demand for alternative transportation and really, really work to provide and hopefully reduce single occupancy vehicle usage. One thing that has been really fascinating about micromobility specifically is how it's able to provide connections to transit and to solve what's called a first last mile problem. So while transit might connect to some part of your community or your destination, it doesn't help you reach it there all the way. So that's one real benefit of bike sharing, and where it's able to fill those plugs. So maybe you can get onto the metro stop and maybe it's a mile away from your actual end destination. Having a bike share station next to you or some vehicles available that you could rent and for the last mile helps you complete your trip and be completely auto dependent without needing to own a vehicle or transport it with you. Adding to this toolbox, Maryland has been working towards making quite a bit of investment in transit in this area. And so we have been eagerly waiting for Purple Line to arrive. And so this is an area where we will see probably where we anticipate to see really, really significant impact in commuter behavior. I think it'll really, really push the shift as far as drawing residents and commuters from around Maryland to the campus, all by light rail. If you have been on campus recently or in the last year or so, I know you've probably seen the construction around and heard quite a lot about Purple Line. And if you haven't, some fun highlights is that around the 5 stops that are immediately around the university will be free to university community members. So we can see our climate, we really, really expect to see that make a huge dent and impact in our climate action plan and our commuter emissions. One other really important component that we're really excited about as well is that there is a bike lane that is planned along the installation across the university. So from this Adelphi Road over to, Baltimore Avenue, you can see one of our first dedicated bike lanes on campus that will come alongside the Purple Line development. So we're really, really eager for that. Some features that are coming soon as well. The Office of Sustainability, in promoting their climate action plan, has been benchmarking metrics specifically around emissions from my department and other departments around campus to understand our impact really well. They're counting things like our bike parking facilities. How many are we adding each year? How many are we meeting the demand needed from the growing number of bicyclists in our community? Things about, how many shuttle rides are being taken. And so their data scientist has been working really hard on aggregating this data and putting it in a really interactive and digestible dashboard that will soon be available to the public. So we're really excited to be able to continue to share the story about sustainable transportation with the campus. Presentation and our discussion today, we're focusing on actions that can be taken by us as individuals and as small communities. The Green Terps program is as you all probably have heard, or if you didn't know, it is a behavior change program that Thunby supervises that looks at different ways and develops checklists for students to become Green Terps and kind of model the way of how to be a Green Terp. And there's various areas looking at waste, water, green dining, and smart commute, which is what we're going to focus on today, of course. So some of the choices that are available here are graphics. Aha, that's very cute. Some of the really important components as far as actions and decision making goes when we're thinking about commuting in a smart way. One of the easiest things you could do is use Smart Commute. If you don't know what Smart Commute is, it's not just the name of our program, but we also have a web-based platform that serves as a trip planner, but also it has carpool matching functions. It has features that incentivizes sustainable commuting. So from time to time, we run rewards and challenges on our Smart Commute platform to really sink in and continue to prioritize sustainable transportation. So first step is to log onto Smart Commute and use it as a trip planner, enter in your start and end destinations and see what your options are. It can give you all of your biking routes, walking routes from your destination, what transit options are available for you, including Shuttle which normally wouldn't be on Google Maps. And we're working to get our VO Ride hub stations on there, so that'll soon be available as well. Second thing you can do is, once you find which your commute options are, is actually take them. We recommend always walking, biking, or carpooling with a friend or a neighbor or someone headed in your direction. As I mentioned, in the platform, there is a carpool matching feature, so you can find people who are in your area who will be commuting as well in the same direction and message them directly on the platform. Of course, carpooling component does come with a COVID caveat that I must mention. Of course, just be safe when taking any of these modes. You'll want to ensure that you're carpooling with someone that you already live with, but there's plenty of opportunities to reduce single occupancy trips and just make the most of that ride if someone's taking a car in your household. Thirdly, ride for free. One of the really wonderful perks, and I can't stress it enough, about the University of Maryland is our free shuttle service. It's very expansive and we're always eager to see it grow. But we have one of the largest, I think the largest transit agency in the Big Ten, and definitely on this part of the region. So it's a wonderful commuter service that offers evening services, paratransit services, night ride, as some of you students may have experienced already, and also commuter shuttles. We have 2 commuter shuttles that go to park and rides, one in Columbia and one in Gaithersburg. And so those are all options to help make long distance commutes more attainable and affordable for people. Last one of the beautiful ones is register your bike if you have a bike, or take your bike. Registration is important for a number of reasons. Primarily, we want you to have a record of your ownership around your bike, but it also gives you access to things like our bike commuter secured parking, and all of the messages and the communications that comes from our office with additional opportunities and information regarding safety and events that we're holding. So registration is important for very many reasons, but these are some ways that you can be smart as you move forward. in your sustainable transportation journey. These are slides right here that I've basically already highlighted. But one really good factoid that is included here is just about how many hours commuters in the DC area actually spend stuck in traffic. So plenty of ways that we can all kind of work individually and collectively to reduce that and avoid that. Already touched on these, so I won't go over it. So one really important component of commuting smart is commuting safe. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this month is also one of our Safety Month campaigns. It was formerly known as Bike Safety Month, but we have rebranded and just gone with same road, same rules, same rights, because we are trying to address more than just bicyclists, right? We are talking to motorists and also e-scooter riders. So we are sharing some 4 really key principles this month about how you can commute by bike safely. On campus specifically, it is required that you ride on the road. Roads are some of the safest places for people to ride, especially when we are at full capacity on campus with pedestrians everywhere. Pedestrians are often less predictable than motorists, where, you know, motorists kind of all operate and move in the same direction generally. Pedestrians necessarily do not. So that's one reason why we say bicyclists fare better when they are in the road and very visible to the traffic around them. Our campus is also at a slower speed than most roads, and so 20 miles per hour is our campus speed limit, which is one that we really promote and encourage people to follow so we can have a very safe and bikeable environment. Second principle is just being predictable. I think many times cyclists and scooterists are excited because biking and scooting should, in their minds, help us avoid traffic. But when you are in traffic, it's really important to recognize that you are also a vehicle. And in doing so, we want to always make sure that we're displaying predictable behavior to avoid crashes. Same, of course, goes for motorists, but just one that's really important to highlight. Making space and being patient is what we really emphasize for motorists. Vehicles, by Maryland state law, it is required to leave at least 3 feet of space when passing a bicyclist, especially if there's not enough room to adequately share the road. And we really want to emphasize that and minimize the amount of aggressive driving that we see on campus. We know it's a problem, and is who we're really talking to here. Bicyclists and scooter riders have just as many rights on the road as drivers, so there's none of that aggressive driving behavior that's necessary. And then following the law, of course, and this goes for everyone. It kind of goes without saying, but following the traffic laws helps create a good environment that allows for biking and scooting and alternative modes of transportation to be adopted and to keep folks safe. This is a quick list of all of the events that we have scheduled this month. There's quite a lot. We've teamed up with the Reckwell Adventure Programs and their bike shop to offer a number of great group rides that can be socially distant. Great ways to get outside, away from all the Zoom sessions. And so these are offered all month long. There are a couple of other ways that we are doing engagements. We are also doing some online trivia that is taking place this month, and giving away free bike lights as well with registration. If you're joining us from home, you can take part in the Maryland 100 Bike Challenge, which you record your bike trips on Strava and do that in a team of 4 people. And that's another really great way to meet people while you're away at home. And also next Friday, we recognize that this is an election year and really want to amplify and encourage everyone who has the opportunity to vote. So we're leading a couple of group rides around campus and to the Xfinity Center. where we can drop off some of our absentee ballots if you live in Prince George's County. And we'll also take a ride over to the post office. So for anyone who is doing a mail-in ballot, we want to show you the routes and encourage people to bike there as well. All of the events, blurbs, details, and registration links can be found at the short link down below. One of the other really important things that is going on in October is Walktober. If anyone didn't know, walking is Maryland's state exercise. And so I didn't realize we had a state exercise, and I was really excited to find that. So today, as we celebrate Walk Maryland Day, various departments on campus, including sustainability, transportation, the Arboretum, Recwell, have assembled a toolkit that have some really great details about walkable areas on campus, what you should think about when you're walking, and it also includes a really lovely story map of a walking tour around campus, where you can find great art installations and green spaces to recreate around. One area that I'd really love to highlight is that the state of Maryland is also hosting a series of walk-in-ars this month. And so that is an opportunity to really engage with transportation professionals at the state and local level that are working on issues around walkability in our neighborhoods. So I know they'll be talking about ways to communicate how pedestrian infrastructure can be improved and how community members can participate in that. So I think those are going to be some really, really great opportunities to get an inside look about walkability, walkable developments, if that is of interest, and talk with people who are directly working on those problems. So definitely a really great way to get involved.